Thanks for checking in to the State of Basketball podcast, episode 1. I'm Adam Miller. I'm here each and every week with Jaron Wilt, and we're going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball.
Right off the top, Jaron, I just want to talk about Bob Knight. Rest in peace to a legend. We lost Bob Knight this week at 83. I know it was kind of expected. It had been, he had been having some bad health lately. The last couple of years, he hadn't been looking too great. But even when you know it's coming, it still stinks. Thoughts and prayers to his family, his former players, everyone who knew Bob Knight. I'm sure is feeling that loss, and the state of Indiana and just all of college basketball, I think, is just feeling that they lost a legend this week.
I'm just glad that in 2021, he made his way back to Assembly Hall.
Yeah,
it was the first time he had really been there. First time he had been there at all since he was unfortunately fired in 2000.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he was able to do that, because it's really Assembly Hall is the house that Bob Knight built. And I think that for the fans, for himself, it kind of gave him a sense of closure, a sense of completion, that he was able to make his way back and really experience the Hoosier fandom again.
Yeah, you don't ever want someone to go out, while you're in bad terms with them or anything, always wonder, what if I had told them this? And I think that, hopefully Bob Knight got that kind of closure with, IU and living in Bloomington and having Mike Woodson bring him back to practices and stuff. I hope he, knows how much he meant, and not that, Indiana's the school that fired him and whatnot.
Right.
So again, rest in peace to Bob Knight. So every week we're going to bring you news and notes, our noticings, things we saw about the 11 Division I schools. And yes, there are 11 as of last year. So all the D1 schools in the state of Indiana, we'll be talking about them. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some high school. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some Pacers talk. Undefeated Pacers is a dead dream, but got to talk about them if we're talking about Indiana. So
absolutely.
Those 11 schools are Ball State, Butler, Evansville, Indiana, Indiana State, Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, Notre Dame, Purdue, Purdue-Fort Wayne, Southern Indiana, and Valparaiso. So let's jump into it, man. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Ball State. I'm wearing.
Of course, you want to start there.
Obviously, that's also alphabetical. But went to Ball State grad, repping Ball State now here today. And I also think it's fitting because the second-year head coach at Ball State is Michael Lewis, who was a Bob Knight guy. He played for Knight at Indiana.
All-time assist leader, season assist leader.
I think season assist leader. Yeah. He's
both.
Definitely, he had a storied career with the Hoosiers. But it's an exciting time for Ball State because they got a guy that really came in as a highly regarded assistant coach. He was an assistant for 18 years. 3 of those years were at UCLA under Mick Cronin. Excuse me.
He said he was like, I know.
Yeah, he knew.
I know he's going.
He knew, especially the year the Ball State job opened up. I believe Evansville job opened up as well. And the year after that, the Butler job opened, and then the year after that, Butler opened the same year, I think. But anyways, there was a lot of job openings back in Indiana, and being a through and through Indiana guy, Mick Cronin knew that Michael Lewis had the skills to go be a head coach and lead a program to some success. And we really saw that in his first year with the Cardinals.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah, exactly. His impact was shown. Their star center entered the transfer portal when the previous coach was fired, and Mike Lewis was able to bring him back and keep him with the Cardinals. So that center is Peyton Sparks. He now has transferred to Indiana, but he is, I believe, number 3 all time in scoring in 2 seasons with the Cardinals. So that's a pretty impressive feat.
You can see how big that was to bring him back. I know he only stayed one more year with Mike Lewis, but I mean, Peyton was like, I feel like he was like an Indiana fan, you know?
Yeah,
You can't,
yeah.
especially when Trace leaves, it's hard to if they got a spot.
Right.
But.
There was conversations that Peyton was going to go to Indiana after his freshman year when he entered the portal, but Michael Lewis was able to retain him. And it really helped lead the Cardinals to a fourth place finish in the conference in the Mid-American. They finished 20-12 overall with 11-7 record, and really up until the last couple of weeks of the season, they were in the running. They had a chance to win the conference. And a lot of that has to do with their highly defensive game. They finished third, I believe, in opponents points against.
Okay.
So they only gave up 71.6 points to their opponents, which helped them win some of those 20 games.
Okay, so like the number one team would have allowed like 65 points, something
like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So they weren't giving up a lot of points to their opponents. They were able to. Ball State was able to convert to that.
Nice.
They actually last season, a little kind of historic note. They started the season 19-7. Which was the Cardinals' best start since the 97-98 season, where they had a 21-7 record. So, Ball State won 20 games for just the 13th time in program history. So,
good for them, man.
Exciting stuff going on in Muncie, Indiana. But they're returning 6 players, so they've got a good core coming back. Mm-hmm. But only one of those players was a starter. He wasn't a high scoring starter. He was more of a role play guy out on the court. So he's gonna have to make a big jump, and that's Mickey Pearson Jr. Lewis also brought in 5 true freshmen and 3 transfers, so 8 guys coming in. So a little over half the lineup, half the roster.
We got a decent number to help usher those new guys in, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not as tilted of a intake as some of the other schools we'll talk about, where they brought in a majority of their roster, but it's really great because it's November. A lot of these guys maybe got to campus in June, July,
August,
around
maybe,
that time. August for some, yeah. But one of their players, a guy who's been there for 4 years, a redshirt junior, Ben Hendricks. He said it's the tightest knit group that he's had while playing with the Cardinals. So in that short time, they're already playing like a family. They're close. They're hanging out, spending time together, and I think that's going to help them win some games.
Yeah, hopefully that means Lewis found the guys that he wanted that fit what he wants, and I feel like being close and tight knit is going to get them through the tough parts of the season where they lose 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So, they were picked to finish 8th in the MAC this season, so 4 spots back from where they finished last season. But like you said, I think that family-like culture that Mike Lewis has brought in is going to help them win some games that they might be counted out. And a lot of that also is going to do with they've got more of an increase in their transition game. So we mentioned Peyton Sparks. He was a more back to the basket, down low, center, strong. He's gonna body you down low. The guy who's really kind of going to replace him as the center is more of a transition type of guy, and he's already saying that the team's going to look a little different. So I think combined with their defensive prowess, as long as they continue that, there's going to be some exciting things going on. And
awesome.
Another thing I even want to bring up is Lewis. He's deemed himself as the campus party planner.
It's a lot to do at Ball State.
It's a lot to do at Ball State, and it's really he sees fan engagement as his number 2 job as a head coach. And part of that is he partnered with athletics last year to give out vouchers to any students that show up to the game for free hot dog, piece of pizza, soda, or alcoholic beverage of their choice.
Genius.
And if you're a college kid, how do you say no to free pizza and free beer
and hoops?
And some pretty exciting basketball. So, and that was noticed last year in attendance. They the previous season, the average attendance rate was around 3,200 attendees per game. And last year that jumped up to 4,152 attendees per game. So
almost 1,000.
Almost 1,000 new attendees, which is
including us.
We went to a game, and it was a fun game to watch. It unfortunately the Cards lost, but it What's funny, it was senior night actually, I believe. So
Yeah.
it was really cool to see some of those seniors get to be honored because they were there during some tough times, and being able to go out as a senior with a historic season.
Yeah, you could feel the energy when we were there. You know, we ran into one of my buddies who was an alum, and he was just excited about the team and excited about what Lewis is doing. I think there's a lot of people who are just excited that Lewis is there.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm friends with you, and you have ties to Ball State, but I went along because I was like, I just got to see this team, man. I got to see Lewis coach, and I think the energy is palpable there, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Speaking of energy, we've Hinkle Fieldhouse, another place that's
legendary energy,
full of legendary energy. What's going on with Butler this season?
Butler Bulldogs, man. They're going into year 2 of the Thad Matta era. Year 1 did not go well. I don't want to say it didn't go as well as people thought, because I don't think that people had very high expectations for Butler. Last year, you would think that when you hire someone like Thad Matta, that the expectations would be very high, because he's never had a losing season except for this last year at Butler. So I mean, took Ohio State to a Final Four, got guys like Greg Oden and Mike Conley to come there, and I'm blanking on his name, Evan Turner, and Mark Titus, legends like that. He's pulling people you would think, okay, he's going to do something at Butler, but he's been out of coaching for a while. It's been 6 or 7 years, right? Since he was fired from Ohio State and had those health problems. And his year at Ohio, he had like one meh year, still above 500, but right, meh. And they were like, all right, we're done, and they moved on. But went 14-18 last year after spending 1 year at Indiana in some weird administrative teach Mike Woodson how to coach college role, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's adjusting to a new game, so give him some time. Give him, I'd say, 2 years. He's still really young, right? Even though he, feels like he retired, and still pretty young. So he could be there for a while, and he loves Butler.
He was. I remember going to games, and he sat. I was fortunate. I had someone I know had season tickets that I was able to borrow those tickets a couple of times, and he sat 2 rows behind us, so like 15 rows behind off the sideline. And he watched and attended a lot of games, and he understands the culture at Butler, which I think is a really important part about being a coach at Butler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he basically moved, like when he got fired from Iowa State, he just like basically moved straight back to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Mark Titus obviously played for him at Ohio State and said that, if Butler ever opens, that's like the one place he would want to go back to. And there he is.
Yep.
So like I said, 14-18, not great, but you're playing in the Big East. You got some big dogs there.
Oh yeah.
You got, literally, you got not the Georgetown Hoyas of last year, but maybe this year. You got big dogs and Huskies. You got the UConn in there, national champion. You got Marquette. You got a lot of really good teams in the Big East. So it's really hard to win there. But 14-18 still respectable for a first year, in my opinion. They're supposed to go 6-14 in the Big East and finish ninth out of 11. That's still not terrible. I think that's all right. I think that's okay, especially because he's basically starting over with a new roster again.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a ton coming back. I think he has like 4 returners, so it's basically a whole new roster.
Yeah.
So
in a conference as deep like, as the Big East, like that's 6-14. Like that's not bad.
No, especially
it's not great.
No,
and it is tough for a historic program like Butler, who's seen some success in the last decade. But
right,
still.
But you have to, you take Brad Stevens out of it. This like a lot of people don't know who Butler is. They're not in they're not in the Big East without Brad Stevens. But
right.
It's just such a tough league. Every game is so hard. Which goes to say that like when people go to Hinkle, they're not going to take the day off. If they take the day off, then they're going to lose. In Hinkle, they're going to lose to Butler, and Butler's going to upset somebody. Cool games that I like that they have. They're playing Michigan State in the Gavitt games, which in my opinion, weird, because Michigan State is like second in the Big Ten.
They're top 5 team in the country.
Yeah, and they're playing. Yeah, they're playing Butler, who's projected to go finish 9th in the Big East. So weird that they didn't line that up. FAU, obviously was in the Final Four last year, and Texas Tech. So I think Texas Tech is going to be pretty good. So I really like those non-conference games that they got. I think if they can beat Texas Tech, that's like a really good sign. Guys they're bringing in, they brought in a lot of transfers. Posh Alexander from St. John's, Pierre Brooks from Michigan State, Landon Moore from St. Francis, DJ Davis from UC Irvine are some of the names to know. The one that I'm really looking forward to seeing and how he works with Thad Matta is if Thad Matta can get him to play the way that he wants to play, is Posh Alexander can be like the floor general. He can be a playmaker. He's replacing Eric Hunter Jr. who came over from Purdue. If he can get them running well and he can get everyone involved, you're probably not going to see him shoot a lot of threes because he's not a great 3-point shooter. He's a really good pass first point guard who can set people up. Moore is a combo guard. He can score, he can distribute, he can play that 2 guard or that 1 guard when Posh is out. And then Brooks is just a big guard who can play 1 through 5 or 1 through 4. And so if Thad can get it going, I think they're going to be better, but it's still going to be hard to finish higher in the Big East, in my opinion, because the Big East is so loaded. So 9th out of 11th seems pretty doable and pretty realistic for expectations for Butler fans. You're going to be trying to probably finish 8th at best because it's so loaded, it's so deep, and there's no days off. So 9th, 8th is fine, but it's basically year 1 again with that at Butler. So you want to head down south?
Yeah. So Evansville, kind of mentioned it when I was talking about Ball State. 2 seasons ago, they hired David Ragland. So he's in his 2nd season with the Purple Aces. They finished a very disappointing 5-27 overall with a 1-19 conference record. So not a great first season.
And they're in the Missouri Valley.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Or the Missouri Valley Conference, which is not it's not a easy conference. It's there's
harder than you would expect.
Yeah, there's some competition, especially at the middle of the pack there. It's going to be a close race. They are projected to finish 11th. But they're essentially doubling their record almost. They're projected to go 8-23 with a 4-16 conference record. So a big jump in record, but again, that just kind of shows how deep the Missouri Valley Conference is and how the middle of their pack is it's really anyone's game at that point.
Yeah, 1 or 2 games, ball bounces differently, and they're 4th.
Exactly. So they do have 5 returners, but they have 12 new guys. So a lot of disparity there when it comes to the guys that they have coming back versus the guys that they brought in. But they had 4 transfers, which are pretty balanced in terms of they got a sophomore, junior, a senior, and a 5th-year senior.
Okay.
But they have 8 freshmen. So, like I said, they're projected to finish 11th, but if those freshmen kind of show up and show what they can do, even if they finish 11th this year, there's a bright future there because those guys are going to get a lot of experience.
Feels like a young core they're bringing in if they can keep them together.
Yeah, as long as they all stay together, it's going to be exciting stuff. 2 guys that I want to point out as guys that are going to be exciting to watch this year are Kenny Strawbridge Jr. He is a 5th-year senior. He's preseason 2nd team all Missouri Valley Conference, and is only 27 points away from hitting the 1,000-point career mark. So
you were gonna say he was 27, man, like that dude in Memphis.
Nope. He's a 5th-year senior, so only a few years shy of being 27 years old, but 27 points away from hitting that 1,000-point career mark. Look to see that in the first week of the season. Don't expect it. If you're an Evansville fan, don't expect it game 1.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of learning curve, especially with 8 freshmen coming in and just 12 new guys overall. But once the kind of the jitters wear out and that lineup and rotation is established, I think he's gonna score the hell out of the ball.
Yeah.
Speaking of scoring, a guy who shot 44% from deep last year.
My God.
Gage Bobe. He is a fifth year. He's in his fifth year with the Purple Aces, so
been
there a while.
Seen a lot.
Yep, he's seen a lot. He only averaged 5.6 points per game, though. So
he's not shooting enough.
Not shooting enough. Exactly. So he's shooting the hell out of the ball,
mm-hmm.
but very, very low volume based on those points per game. So, he's had some ups and downs in scoring. So as long as he can be consistent and hit 12 points per game, 5 points per game, that's the way he's shooting. That's 2 extra shots.
Yeah.
In theory, maybe 4 extra shots to hit that 12 points.
You want that percentage to go down because he's shooting more. He's got to be shooting more.
Exactly. So he's going to be exciting to watch if the ball's in his hands. But it's going to be interesting. They did bring back 3 returning starters, which is more than a lot of teams we're going to talk about. So that experience is good. And with those 3 returning starters plus the 4 transfers and the 8 freshmen, I think that they're gonna kind of build a core and work around that. Mm-hmm. And there's some exciting times ahead for the Purple Aces for sure.
Yeah, it seems like it might not be a this year thing for them, but looking to win more than last year. I think you said projected to go 8-23. I think 10. Yep. 10 is the number you're looking for. If you're if you get to 10, be very happy, Evansville.
For sure. For sure.
First part of the season, you're going to be playing a lot of big teams, but look to get some games in the conference and finish with 10 wins and be happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to talk about IU.
The guy in the Ball State shirt is the guy talking about IU, not the guy in the IU hat.
Ironic, right?
We love the oval. We love the oval logo. Bring back the oval. Okay, I'll say it again. Bring back the oval.
Bring back the oval. I'm a fan as well. I'm wearing a Ball State shirt, but I'd say more of my fandom lies with the Hoosiers, through and through. Indiana guy. My grandfather went to Indiana, and he has been profoundly impacted by the program. Mm-hmm. And so I learned a lot from him. Yeah. And part of that is how to root for IU.
Yeah. We like all 11. I just want to go on record. All 11. All of them. But, everyone's got their favorites.
Yeah. Exactly. It's going to be a lot of exciting basketball to watch across all 11 of these teams. Mm-hmm. But
tell me about the Hoosiers.
Back to the Hoosiers. Coached by legendary great Mike Woodson. It's his 3rd season in charge. He in his first 2 seasons, he was 44-26 with a 21-19 conference record. So a lot of those bye games are kind of tilting the overall record positively, but being 500 in 2 years with a
he's still above 500 in conference. So
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what we're looking for, especially with kind of the drought that they've had when it comes to success, but also NCAA tournament appearances. Made their first tournament since 2016 in the 2021-22 season. So Mike Woodson's first season. Yep. Made the tournament. Made a lot of fans happy. However, in the last 2 seasons when he's made the tournament, they've had a round 2 loss both years. So
I want to go on record and say that was a bull that IU got the play-in game.
And we were playing game that first
not even
season.
That they just got the play-in game. That was bull and by itself. But the fact that they then had to fly from Dayton to Portland after the play-in game, they only put IU in the play-in game just to get views. That's absurd.
Yeah, no, I agree. They did finish the season last year, number 30. According to KenPom. Mm-hmm. They're starting this year at number 49. A lot of that has to do with them losing 2 NBA draft picks and Trace Jackson Davis, the leader in just about it. He's top 5 in every category when it comes to every statistical category for the Hoosiers.
How much scoring do they even have coming back at this point?
Around 20%.
Top, I feel like tops. Yeah,
no more than 20% of their scoring from last season is coming back with the loss of Trace Jackson Davis and also the 1st-round draft pick and Jalen Hood-Schifino. So they are currently predicted to go 9-11 and 11 and finish 6 out of the 14 Big Ten teams. Ironic, 14 teams in the Big 10 conference. I'm not going to get started on that.
That'd be the Big 18.
Big 18, exactly. But some games to look out for in this kind of non-conference schedule. They've got UConn, which is a huge one, reigning national champions.
Second year in a row that they've played the national champions.
Yep, exactly. And they won last year when they played the reigning national champions. So see if they can do that again. But no,
they lost. We played both teams in the title, but we lost to Kansas. They lost to Kansas.
North Carolina won, though.
North Carolina lost in the...
Yeah.
If you watched the first half and turned it off like I did, you were like,
You're right.
They did win.
You're right. I have it backwards. But it's
a big opportunity.
It's a big opportunity to play UConn. It's a neutral site. They're playing in the Empire Classic in New York. So is it really a neutral site when UConn's just like pretty much just up the road from New York?
Yeah, but that's Woody's home,
half the conference away, or half the country away. It is. Yep. Woody Woodson has been in New York for quite some time, so he knows how to win big games there. But in the Empire Classic, they'll also play either Texas or Louisville. So hoping for Texas, just from a experience standpoint.
Right. You don't want to play Louisville.
You don't want to play Louisville.
That's bottom line. There's nothing to win. You either beat Louisville and gain nothing, or you lose to Louisville and
lose a lot.
Fold your program.
Yeah, exactly. So also play Kansas and Auburn. So some exciting games to watch out for. They're playing Kansas in Assembly Hall. Mm-hmm. So really any team going into Assembly Hall, it's going to be a tough game. The crowd is makes a big impact on the away team.
It's nice that one's on campus, though. I wish that one of these, Texas, Louisville, Auburn, I wish one of those was on campus. Not at IU, but at the other campus. I wish they had a road game.
A true road game. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh, I agree.
That's the only thing.
I agree. Not going to see a lot of true road games until conference play. But like we talked about, scoring from last year, they are returning 2 starters. They lost seven key players. Got 3 freshmen and 3 transfers coming in. 2 guys to watch out for: freshman Mackenzie Mbako.
Mm-hmm.
The dude, he's just smooth, man. Like, he's a projected lottery pick. Projected first rounder. He could stretch into the lottery if he plays up to his potential.
Right.
He could shoot the 3 ball. He's going to play a lot of the 3 or the 4. So he's really a true wing, which Mike Woodson hasn't had in his first 2 seasons, and that's what his bread and butter. That's what his offense is.
That's what he wants.
So we're going to see a lot of minutes from Mackenzie. Another guy filling some big shoes from Trace Jackson Davis is sophomore transfer Khalil Ware. He's a 7-foot rim protector. He can stretch the floor and shoot from the 3. So if you watched Indiana games last year, you saw a lot of pick and roll action with Xavier Johnson and Trace Jackson Davis, mm-hmm. Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis as well. Right. Well, a new dynamic is going to be the pick and pop. With Ware being able to shoot the 3 at a pretty decent percentage rate. We won't see a lot of 3s from him, but his ability to do that is really going to open the offense up.
Yeah.
And when you've got a guy like Xavier Johnson attacking the rim, who's got an incredible explosiveness and incredible court vision,
right,
it's gonna open that offense up.
Having shooters is just gonna help a ton.
Yeah, exactly. However, speaking of the offense, expect a slow start to the season. Got a lot of new pieces. They've got pretty much 3 new starters in the rotation.
Yeah.
It's once they get things figured out, it's going to be fun basketball to watch, but expect a slow start. If we lose some of these big non-conference games, don't let that deter you, because if anything, it's just getting the team ready for March.
Yeah.
So as long as they make it to March, then they're going to have great experience playing teams they play at a competitive level during the NCAA tournament.
Sure. You want to make sure that you're playing teams that are going to reflect the teams that you're going to play in March, and not just beating up on little tiny schools.
Exactly. And I will say, some of these games we lost, I think, are going to be lost on the defensive side if we lose them.
Okay.
Just because when our defense is on, we can compete with the best of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's off, it's going to be a struggle.
Right.
And we're a highly defensive team, so we're going to shut some teams down. And I think that's going to be the exciting thing to watch for throughout the entire season.
Yeah, I like the defense that they got up front with X coming back and with Galloway being there at the two. And
their perimeter defense is, I'll say it, probably best in the country. Has the potential to be best in the country.
Okay, call it now.
I'm calling my shot.
You heard it here.
They've got you got Trey Galloway, who's probably going to always be guarding the best 3-point shooter, whether they're playing the 2 or the 3. And then you've got Xavier Johnson, who's going to always be on the primary ball handler. And if things go like they should, he's gonna get a lot of steals. He's gonna slow that offense down that they're playing against, and things are gonna be good.
Cool. Yeah, I think they just got to make it to March.
Yep.
Right. Yep. If they can, the Big Ten season's gonna suck because I think that this team is not quite as suited to
play bully basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why you have Peyton Sparks.
Yep,
you got someone strong like Peyton Sparks, but they got to make it to March. If they can make it to March, then they should be looking pretty nice when it gets to March. Indiana, speaking of moving from Indiana to Indiana State, like Larry Bird did, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about Indiana State now. Josh Schertz, third season, head coach of the Sycamores. Go Trees. He's in his third season, but before he was at Indiana State, he was a longtime coach at a D2 program called Lincoln Memorial. And he actually has the 6th highest winning percentage of any college coach ever. He's 371 and 102, so he hasn't coached 1,000 games or anything like that, but his winning percentage is absurd. At a D2 program, I admit it, sure, it's different, but winning is winning,
Winning's winning. Yep.
If a guy can win, that should translate in some way. Finished 100 in KenPom last year, debuting at 111. Finished 5th in the Missouri Valley, and this year they're predicted to go 12-8 and finish 4th. So, not bad. I mean, expected to finish better in the Missouri Valley, but I believe they're trying. The thing that you want to keep an eye out for is, can they be better than last year? Because the first year they were second year they were 23-13. Last year they were 23-13. So, can they be better than that? I don't know, because their team is really young. They have 8 freshmen or sophomore players. So, normally when you look at a team making a jump, you want to look for older teams, but that's not necessarily the college landscape anymore. When you see teams at mid-majors, you see people leaving a lot now with the transfer portal being, just available, instant transfer one time. So a lot of the people who were doing really well at Indiana State, mid-majors like that, they're going to be, jumping to a bigger school if they can, maybe play a reduced role. So not a lot of people coming back, but 8 freshmen or sophomore coming in, and only 1 senior and 1 grad senior. Yep, so not a lot of age here, but I don't think that's going to make that much of a difference because I think Schertz has got it. He's got a great philosophy. He knows the way he wants to play. He's just got to get his guys doing it. So Xavier Bledsoe, he's a senior guard. He was the MBC all-bench team 2 years ago. Can't make the all-bench team when you're not on the bench, when you're not coming off the bench anymore. So look for him to be a big glue guy. He can play 1 through 5. Julian Larry was an all-defensive team guy last year. Got 46% from 3. Low volume. Like, he needs to be shooting more. So get him to shoot more. And if he can keep that percentage above 35, that's really, really nice. Isaiah Swope comes from Southern Indiana, transfers from a different Indiana school. So we're going to talk about him. So we'll talk about him now. We won't talk about him then because he's not there anymore. Yep. But another great 3-point shooter, shot over 40%, but he was at 175 attempts last year.
Okay.
So
much higher.
There's the volume shooter.
Yeah.
And you're like, if you got these 2 guys, you get them open at any point, it should be going in. And then the guy that I really like is Robbie Avila. He is a big man down low, but he can stretch the floor. He can shoot the 3 ball pretty well. He averaged about 10 last year, but he's actually the 4th highest scoring freshman in Indiana State.
Does that include Larry Bird?
Not sure, but
either way,
that's
still an
4th,
impressive
5th,
stat.
I don't know if Larry Bird played technically as a freshman and what the rules were back then, but still, that's really nice to see that they've got someone like him looking to make a sophomore jump. So if you're looking for an anchor who can keep this team rolling, I think he's going to be a really, really good guy to look to, because he and Larry were both second team all conference picks this year.
Okay, for the preseason. That makes sense.
Yep. So the very first basketball game this season is IUPUI.
Today, 11 a.m.
The Jags are playing today. They're tipping off the season, and that's for all of college basketball. So let's talk about the Jags down in Indianapolis. Obviously, this is going to be the last year that the legendary 5-letter acronym is their name. They're going to be they're dropping the Purdue, and just like IPFW dropped the Indiana, so they're changing their name. And so it's going to look a little bit different, maybe in name, but probably not in what they're bringing on the court. Matt Crenshaw's in year 3. Should be a little bit better, because unlike a lot of the teams we're talking about, he brings back pretty much everybody, and that's huge. So Jalen Counter, he was picked second team All Horizon League, and he averaged about 14 a year. Or 14 points last year, 14 a year. He averaged 14.
I guess that works. Stat. Yeah, it's 14 a year.
Yeah, he averaged 14 points last year, and they're actually 40 points higher in KenPom than they were at the end of last year, where they spent it in the cellar. I mean, like the bottom.
They were like bottom 2 the entire season, right?
Yeah, only
bottom 1 most of the season.
Only like better than Green Bay by the end of the season.
It was also in the Horizon League.
So 360. Up to 320, and they only won 5 games. But KenPom predicts that they're going to go 13-18, which is a huge jump. I mean, 8 more games winning, and that's giant. But here's the Horizon League is that big jumble in the middle, but there's still such a big separation, because they're still projected to finish second to last above Green Bay, 13-18. Winning 8 more games. But I think that you're looking at a team who brings back all these people. He's got 4 transfers, and he's got a couple of people who were on the all-freshman team, Jalen Counter and Vincent Brady the second, sorry. And they bring back another guy, Bryce Moore, who was hurt and only played 4 games. So you're looking at a team that brings back a lot, which is not like a lot of the teams that we've been talking about and are gonna talk about.
Yeah.
It brings back pretty much everyone. I think they can finish as high as 6th and get close to maybe having a 500 season. I think if they have a 500 season, that's like a really good successful season for them. Gonna be tough to do, but I think that they've got a roster that's really really made for it, since they've got so many pieces coming back. But you want to talk about somebody's coming back this year, coming back to Indiana?
Yeah, guy comes back to the state of Indiana, Micah Shrewsbury, the new head coach with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Very historic program. Obviously, if you're in the state, if you're either Indiana fan, a Purdue fan, or a Catholic.
Exactly.
So
I grew up Catholic and not a Notre Dame fan. Just an IU fan.
One of a few, I imagine.
Weird.
But Fighting Irish did not have a great season for as historic of a program that they've got.
Especially for Bray.
Yeah, especially for Mike Bray, who's a historic coach and seen a lot of success. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
They ended the season at KenPom 166, but they're starting this season at KenPom 165.
Shrewsbury effect.
And I think that a lot of that has to do with Shrewsbury being there. He's a guy that, like I said, he knows how important basketball is in the state of Indiana. He knows what it takes to sit down with a high-level recruit in the state and keep them in the state.
I think he's but he's spent a lot of time coaching in the South Bend area, I believe.
He helped recruit when he was an assistant at Purdue too. So he has a lot of connections and knows a lot of coaches, high school coaches, and is familiar with high school basketball.
Everyone knows him. Everyone knows him nationally now. After you make Penn State good,
yeah.
If you can win at Penn State,
Exactly. Although, speaking of winning, they're not predicted to do a lot of that this year. The Irish are predicted to finish dead last in the ACC with a record of 11-19 overall, with a 5-15 conference record.
Did you say dead last?
Dead last. Nat,
come on.
I mean, I know that there's Louisville and Syracuse.
There's the only reason you need to say they're not going to finish dead last is Louisville is a team.
Louisville,
barely.
Yep. I don't know. I mean, depending on who you ask, Louisville's going to be a good team this year.
Are they blind? Are those people blind?
I don't know. But a big reason why they're projected to finish the conference in last place is they lost all 5 starters last year, and 9 total players in general. So a lot of turnover.
They went up 1 spot though in KenPom, but he's basically starting over. That's a good
Well, a lot of that has to do with the top 30 recruitment class they brought in, the freshman recruitment class. So
that'll do it.
They do have 3 returners coming back. 4 freshmen that came in, like I said, ranked top 30 in the nation. 3 transfers. However, they're gonna have to rely on those freshmen a lot, or expect a lot of big jumps from their transfers and returning players, because combined over their collegiate careers, those 6 transfers / returning players only have a combined 12.3 points per game.
Yikes.
Yeah, so not a lot of scoring, although also on very low minutes across the board.
Right.
But it's going to be an interesting season. What I'm most excited for, talked about recruiting guys from the state of Indiana, keeping them in the state of Indiana. Marcus Bird, freshman coming in. He was the 2023 Indiana Mr. Basketball, 5'11" point guard.
Did he commit before Shrews?
So he is a guy, he committed to Mike Bray, but retained that commitment with Shrewsbury. So again, Shrewsbury is already showing he can recruit high-level guys and keep them in the state.
Yeah, that's huge.
Because they he retained him when there's a lot of teams who were looking for guards.
I know he's
Purdue
small,
and Indiana were looking for guards in the off season. So
I know he's small, but that's huge that he stayed. I mean, that says a lot about Shrewsbury.
Yeah, and a lot of that, he was Indiana Mr. Basketball. He is a 5'11" point guard, but he's got a very aggressive attacking style. He's a slasher, got a beautiful mid-range shot, but he can score at all 3 levels. He can shoot the 3 ball. He really is a guy that his confidence and his fearlessness is really going to help them win some games. I think he understands the game of basketball in a way that, like, if the opportunity presents itself, he's going to take over, and he's going to lead them to some wins. And I think that confidence that he has is really going to make him stand about 6'1", 6'2", instead of 5'11".
Like a guy who's going to know if the game calls for him to get 8 assists or with 15 points.
Exactly.
Whatever he needs,
exactly.
he's gonna find it.
But like I said, Shrewsbury, they're projected to finish last in the ACC. But one of the things about Shrewsbury is he's a big X's and O guy. I can only name on one hand coaches that have a bigger playbook than Micah. Matt Painter being one of them, who he coached under for a couple years at Purdue. But
when you learn from Matt Painter and Brad Stevens, I mean,
exactly,
that's a reason to be hired in itself.
Exactly. So Shrewsbury, he's a guy, he knows how to make a game plan, stick to that game plan, but also adapt to the game plan. So if the moment needs it, he's going to find a way to win. So look for that 5-15 record to be a little different when it comes to ACC play.
All right, Shrewsbury at Purdue, but we're not going to Purdue yet. We're going to the North Purdue, right? That's what they call it. No, Purdue Fort Wayne.
There it is.
So Purdue Fort Wayne 2 years ago was selected, or 2 years ago did win the Horizon League regular season. They didn't win the tournament, so they didn't end up in the NCAA tournament, which is a bit of a letdown. And last year was a bit of a letdown too, because they were projected to win the conference. They were picked to win the conference. And they ended up losing and finishing ninth, which is a pretty big drop. But when you think about that big middle of the Horizon League, you know, it might have been 2 games back of second or third. But John Kaufman, he's still there. He's still working. 10th season at PFW. He's got a winning record. Like I said, he won the league 2 years ago. So, you know, had some success. Last year, just all bounced the wrong way a couple of times, and you're sitting at 9th instead of 3rd.
Yep.
The thing about this year is, you know, they ended 240 in KenPom. They're 298 this year, and a big reason why is they're replacing their entire starting 5. I mean, every single piece. And normally that's a big deal. You know, anytime you lose your starting 5, it's a big deal. But they're replacing 4,000 points.
That's an even bigger deal.
Yeah, with one of them, Jared Godfrey, he's leaving, and he is the program's all-time leading scorer. So you're talking about, you know, one of the biggest scorers to ever do it in the conference, and the biggest one at that program. And you're like, okay, that's pretty hard. So they got to fill those roles somehow.
Yep.
And they're bringing in a lot of newcomers, as a lot of these teams are. Destin Whitaker, he's coming in from Fresno State. He shot 38% from 3 at Fresno State.
Okay.
And other names to know: Maximus Nelson, Jalen Jackson, who is an
Indiana guy I like. He's a Fort Wayne guy.
He's not even an Indiana guy. He's a Fort Wayne guy.
Yeah. Played at Northrop High School. Spent last season playing for University of Illinois Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Came back home, and you know, I love a hometown guy. There's a reason I like Anthony Leal with the Hoosiers. He's a hometown guy. Stayed in the hometown, or rather came back to the hometown. And I think anytime you have a guy like that, you're gonna have the fans on your side.
Yeah.
And it puts a little chip on your shoulder to do well. And I think Jalen's gonna show that this season.
Yeah, and it'll be nice because I feel like there's been almost a lack of talent coming out of Fort Wayne lately. It hasn't been.
Yeah, there haven't been a lot of big names.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
and you've got guys like Caleb First and Fletcher Lawyer.
Yeah,
but that's 2 guys, and that's really about it. And it's been, you know, 2-3 years for each of them. So
so it's been not. I haven't had super great recruits coming out of Fort Wayne, but it's nice to see him back for sure. I wouldn't expect a ton. The middle's so congested in the conference, though, in the Horizon League, that maybe they could finish top 5.
I mean, I'm looking at it, and they win 4 more games. That puts them in 5th place.
Okay. And
they flip the script in 4 games.
Yeah,
that would put,
especially
based
if
on the projections.
If they're against teams who are above them, you know, anything can happen. But
exactly,
you know, projected to finish 8th, I think you're just going to be looking at John Kaufman, probably not this year to get the Dons right, but to go into the year after this and say, okay, can we finish top 3 in the conference in 2025? But a team that will, I hope, be finishing better than top 5 in the conference is Purdue. I think that they're going to win the conference again. I think they're going to go back to back.
I would be shocked if they didn't. I'd be worried if they didn't, probably.
I wouldn't be worried.
I would be worried because I think it would mean that I would be worried for everyone else, I think is what it is, because it means the Big Ten is better than everyone thinks that they are.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you got number 3 Purdue in AP, you know, in the AP poll, and then number 5 Michigan State. So, I mean, I think Purdue is more suited to win the conference than Michigan State is. Yeah. Michigan State's a little bit more built for March. It's like a perfect, exactly.
It's
what
like
Thomas
Thomas's like dream lineup.
Yeah, but Purdue, I think realistically can and should win the conference. I think that the Big Ten tournament is probably realistic for them too. But if I'm a Purdue fan, I almost don't want to win the conference tournament because I'd almost rather have some rest going into you know, the tournament and scout the team and, you know, all that. But biggest piece coming back is Zach Edey. I mean, he's such a big piece that I'm talking about him before the coach.
Both metaphorically and physically. Yeah. He's giant.
I mean, unanimous player of the year. My pick, I think the favorite to win National Player of the Year again, to repeat, which I think if you're picking someone else, you know, it's silly until Edey shows us. until Edey shows us that he doesn't need to be as good as last year, or not even, no, let me rephrase that. Until, like, if Edey is not as good as last year or efficient, that's fine, because that means the rest of Purdue's team is probably better. So if he scores less, that means the rest of the team is scoring more.
As long as they're winning games still, which they should.
Yeah. So if you see a less efficient, putting up similar boards but putting up less points or whatever, Zach Edey, but they're still ranked high, they're still winning games, that's good for the team, because you've got guys stepping up. Matt Painter, obviously the coach at Purdue, going into year 19, and love Matt Painter, love him at Purdue. I love the way he plays, the way he gets his guys to play basketball. I love how he can get every ounce of talent and out of someone, but he just gets them to fit so well.
Yeah.
And looking at last year, the team wasn't projected to be that great, but then Zach Edey was amazing, and the freshman guards were awesome.
Yeah.
And they played such great team basketball that, you're looking at them winning the Big Ten by 3 games. So they should look to repeat. Predicted to go 15-5 this year, which is very, very hard to do in the Big Ten. They bring back basically everyone. They lose Brandon Newman. They lose David Jenkins. But they bring in Miles Colvin, and they bring in Lance Jones as a transfer, right?
Yep. Yeah, he's a transfer.
So they bring those 2 guys in, and I think they have the potential to be kind of that scoring guard, kind of that, maybe that wing, kind of that guy who's just, going to get buckets, going to play nice basketball. And like, I hate to say it, but like, take minutes from Ethan Morton, because Ethan Morton's an ultimate glue guy. He's awesome, but he either has to produce more offensively, or they have to get it from somewhere else. So if he's playing less, it's probably a good thing offensively.
Yeah. I agree.
Trey Coffin-Wren playing the 4 maybe is possible.
Yep, that's what we've seen in the exhibitions.
So playing alongside Zach Edey, that would be nice to not see him just back up Edey, because if I'm Trey Coffin-Wren, like, you could be starting at almost any other school.
Yeah.
But Zach Edey came back, so you got to be able to play with him.
Yep.
It can't be like a Travion Williams, Zach Edey thing back when they couldn't play together. But I want to see them play really well together. I want to see the good team basketball again. I'm not too worried about that. Matt Painter will always figure it out. And the most 6 seniors on the roster is the most since 2005, 2006.
It's a lot of experience.
Really old. And you've got guys who have played in the tournament, had a loss, and they all came back and said, let's not do that again. Yep. So they're motivated.
Let's run it back without running it back kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And last year they played in the PK 85 and shocked everyone, but I don't think there's any shock that they're probably the favorite to win Maui.
Yep.
Probably them or Kansas. Marquette's in there.
Gonzaga. They played Gonzaga in the first round.
Tennessee's in there.
Yep.
It's like a loaded field for Maui this year. So Purdue go in expecting to win, but don't be disappointed if you lose. I mean, you're playing teams that you really, really need to be playing.
Yeah. You're getting experience from March either way. So it's a win-win no matter what.
Yeah.
I think.
The big question mark for me is 3-point shooting. I think that's why they fell off at the end of the year.
Yep.
Lawyer was really great early, fell off at the end of the year, and that 3-point shooting suffered.
It's almost like he hit a sophomore slump
early.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's back.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So hopefully he's back and he's just, able to shoot well, and whoever's shooting's got to shoot threes, which Zach Edey did shoot one in their latest exhibition. He missed.
True. But hey.
But he shot one.
Hey.
Now, I don't think
if you're a Purdue fan, you don't want him shooting threes.
There's no reason for him to step out. He needs to be in the paint. Like, he needs to be there.
He's got about a 5-foot by 5-foot box.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his step is going to be bigger than 5 feet. So maybe we'll say a 10-foot by 10-foot box that he should stay in.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you're like, he's like one of the most efficient players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe ever. Like, it's insane how much he's just, if you give him the ball down low, he's gonna score. So you don't need to look for him to step out. But Purdue should win the Big Ten, should be your pick to win the Big Ten. If Michigan State steals the Big Ten, that's fine. Get that team ready, take some rest after the Big Ten tournament, and go into the NCAA tournament ready to go. All right, I want to head way down south, Jaron. After going to Purdue, we got to keep going south. We got to go down to Southern Indiana, which is our newest Division I team. Program. Yep. Mm-hmm. Year 2 in Division I.
Yeah.
So last year was their first year. I think they did a really great job at transitioning. Stan Gerard, he's in his 4th season at USI, but it's his 2nd season in Division I, obviously. He finished 285 in KenPom, which is really good when there's 360 some odd teams.
Yeah.
But this year they're projected 336th. I mean, you had a lot of the roster came over when they switched to D1. So a lot of the roster came over. So then now you have people who are D1 players you can transfer to a different D1 school. It just feels a little bit different.
Yeah.
But because of the stupidest rule that the NCAA does is you're ineligible for the NCAA tournament. Like, if you win your conference tournament, you're ineligible for the NCAA tournament for like the first 3 years.
I think it's 3, yeah.
It's like you're on probation.
Which makes no sense.
It's so stupid. I mean, don't you want good teams in the tournament? Like, even if you're a good D2 team, if you're good enough to go to D1 and make the tournament, you should be in the tournament. Come on.
I agree.
It needs to change. But they're projected to go 12-19 this year overall, and 7-12 in conference this year. 7-11. They're projected to win 7 games in conference this year, according to KenPom. So down from 9-9 last year, where they made the CBI. But so a little bit of a downward projection, but they were picked 9th by KenPom, but 5th by Blue Ribbon Magazine. So KenPom, if you don't know, is more like analytics, and it's a predictive metric. But Blue Ribbon Magazine is obviously people. So hopefully people who are watching and know the conference and know, maybe they are going to be a little bit closer to 5th. Yaron Hassan transferred from UConn. So played in 11 games, sure, but he's a national champion. He's coming to play for you.
Right.
Apparently Jaron, he said he played in the NCAA tournament, won it, and I was like, all right, I'll just go to a school that can't even make it. I'm done. I'm done.
I just want to get buckets.
Yeah. Time to score a lot. So look for him to play. Xavier McCord comes to USI. He's from Laramie Community College. Davius Moore came from Southwest Mississippi Community College. And like I said, Isaiah Swope transferred to ISU. So they lost 15.6 points per game there. They don't have anyone coming back who scored more than 5 points per game. The highest they have is Jeremiah Hernandez, who scored 4.9.
Sounds a lot like Notre Dame.
Yeah. So they have a whole new roster almost, and the top 8 people on KenPom usage rate last year all gone. So a lot of community college transfers, a lot of JUCO guys.
Yep.
And that can be great. That can be terrible. Time will tell. But
yeah.
Community college or getting JUCO guys, I think, can be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
They can ball. Two dudes.
Community colleges they're not bad. Like there's talent there. There is talent in community college. It's not, they don't go there because they couldn't make a larger program.
Right.
They might go there for grades, or they just want to
just more playing time.
Yeah, get more refined, get more playing time than they would at a bigger, Division II, Division III college.
Like McCord averaged 17.3, Moore averaged 14.5. So if those can transfer over, even at 12 or 10, that's great.
Oh yeah.
So not like USI shouldn't be looking to make big waves this year, but trying to finish where Blue Ribbon has them at 5th would be like a great spot for them to be. You want to go to our last school, number 11?
Going from all the way south to all the way north. Valparaiso. There is a first-year head coach, Roger Powell Jr.
Okay.
New as a head coach, but not new to Valpo. Played there from 2011 to 2016 under Bryce Drew, where they actually won 124 games over the 5 seasons there, which included an NIT title appearance. So
nice.
He knows how to play well in playoff basketball, which I think is going to go a long way. He also coached under Mark Few at Gonzaga most recently. So again, knows what it takes to win.
Yeah,
some competitive basketball games.
When you're there, and I assume when you're there for a national championship game, and an NIT championship.
They lost 13 games over his 4 seasons there, with 121 wins. So
why not do that at Valpo?
Yeah,
why not?
Exactly.
Who says no?
Exactly. I wouldn't say no. But yeah, he's so like I said, he's no stranger to the NCAA tournament as a player. He played in it, and from when he was at Illinois as a player.
Mm-hmm.
Also coached Vanderbilt and Gonzaga to some NCAA appearances. So It's exciting. However, they lost 11 letter winners. They're returning 4.
That's just so common now.
Exactly. Especially with a first year head coach. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be tough. A new coach coming in, especially in the current landscape of college basketball at the transfer portal. A lot of these guys have a COVID eligibility year,
mm-hmm.
So a lot of turnover there.
Maybe it'll calm down in like 2 years when the COVID years are gone. But.
Exactly. So if you're a Beacons fan, don't let that turnover worry you. None of these guys are starters, but they've got a lot of talent coming in. They brought in 9 new players, 6 freshmen. 5 mm-hmm. of those freshmen played at prep schools, so played competitive basketball in high school at the highest level that a high schooler can play at.
Right. So it's not like he came in as their coach and
he wasn't recruiting scrubs.
Yeah, he wasn't scraping the bottom of the barrel to get dudes.
Exactly. They've got a handful of transfers. Isaiah Stafford played at Southern Indiana. Then they've got a forward that played at Central Michigan and another guard that played at Murray State. So some translatable experience there, which I think is gonna help them achieve more than their projected end of season record of 9-22 with a 4-16 conference record.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about it before. It's the Missouri Valley Conference. It's still a few games here and there. It's going to bump up quite a bit. So like I said, Powell Jr. has got a wealth of experience. There's definitely an exciting future ahead, especially if he keeps all these freshmen together. So regardless of how the season ends, I think that there's an exciting future ahead for the Beacons, and they're going to play some good basketball here down the stretch.
We're going to have that battle between Evansville way down south, Valparaiso way up north on who is going to be better than their projections, because they're both supposed to go 4-16 in the MVC. So, who's better?
Exactly. But, as we're wrapping things up, we've got 8 games tipping off today. 8 mm-hmm. teams of our 11 tip off today. We've got 3 tipping off on Tuesday. We talked about it. IUPUI kicks off the entire college basketball season against Spalding University.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing better than the Jaguars playing the school that has the same name as the basketball brand.
Yeah, there's no one better to tip off this season than IUPUI. If your eyes aren't tuned in to IUPUI, then you're just doing something wrong.
Exactly. What other games we got going on this week?
The one that I want to talk about first is our in-state matchup, which is on the 10th, and it's IUPUI at Valpo. So you got IUPUI and Valpo on the 10th. Already going to have a gauge on our power rankings here on who's better, IUPUI or Valpo.
Yep.
Another one is, not another in-state matchup, but we've got Indiana State playing St. Mary of the Woods, who St. Mary of the Woods already lost to.
Was it Valpo, right?
No, Evansville, I think. I want to say Evansville. No, they beat Wabash. It was It was Valpo. Anyway, we're just gonna find it. I will find this. Fort Wayne. No. Oh, yeah, it was Valpo. I scrolled right past it. So Valpo is beat St. Mary of the Woods by 11. Indiana State is playing St. Mary of the Woods. And so, I mean, Indiana State's projected to finish higher in the MVC, but this would be a good gauge to tell you, where they are at.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is probably has the most hype to me behind it is the Purdue Samford game. Because if you haven't seen any of this social media stuff, so obviously Zach Edey's going to do the jump ball, but they've got this dude who's 5'7.5" at Samford, and they've been making all these social media posts that they've been training him to do the jump ball and to beat Zach Edey. So they're going to get blown out, I'm sure, but they need to let this dude, I think his name's Dallas, they need to let Dallas go out there and do the jump ball against Zach Edey. And if Zach Edey is a fan of content, he needs to lose. he needs to throw the jump ball and let Samford get it, because it might be the only one who loses all year.
Right.
He might only lose that one, but I mean, that would just be perfect. And if he loses the jump ball and this dude wins it, the arena's going to go nuts, because
insane.
Yeah. So I think Zach Edey should do it. And I have one pick for upset watch, in my opinion. PFW at DePaul. PFW is replacing a lot, but I think that John Kaufman can go in there and make some noise in DePaul. I think it might be closer than people are thinking, and I think that they can pull off an upset. Not sure that it's going to happen, but I think that DePaul is going to see that Purdue Fort Wayne is coming and just be like, dude, it's not even real Purdue. It's like JV Purdue, right? Exactly. And so, Purdue Fort Wayne, watch out for them against DePaul. What about you, Jaron?
There's one game that I'm excited to watch.
Okay.
That's Indiana State going to Alabama.
Okay.
I think that Nate owns his teams. When they're on, they're on, but when they're off, they're off.
Right.
Will Indiana State upset Alabama? Highly unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that with all the love in my heart. I'm going to be cheering for them to pull it off.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be an exciting game. And if Indiana State can really pressure Alabama, I think it's gonna give them experience that they need to really make that jump.
Yeah, out of the middle.
Out of the middle. Like we said, they're projected to finish fourth. But if they play a competitive game, even if it's just for a half against Alabama, they're gonna know they're gonna remember that feeling.
And I think he's got a crew, and I think Schertz is a guy who builds, the type of community that is like, we can hang with them, we can beat anybody.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be scared to play Alabama.
Especially going into Tuscaloosa. I couldn't think of a better way to get road experience. Mm-hmm. That they're gonna go into Tuscaloosa and feel the pressure from all the fans. And that's just going to really, fine tune them for away games in the conference. And they're going to be completely unfazed by the fans, which I think is going to help them maybe twist.
They're going to be a tough team.
Yeah.
My last one, it's not an upset watch, but it's just like a keep your eyes on this one, I guess, is Indiana playing Florida Gulf Coast at home. It's their season opener at 6:30. Assembly Hall should be rocking. But Florida Gulf Coast, I think, I don't expect them to win. I don't really expect them to keep it too close, but I think if they keep it kind of close, and you've got your starters in at the like under 8-minute timeout in the second half, and it's decently close, I think Assembly Hall is going to be pretty nervous.
Yeah,
and Florida Gulf Coast might be able to feed off that energy. So Indiana, you don't want to see what Indiana looks like. You don't want to see what Assembly Hall looks like if they lose that game to Florida Gulf Coast. So Indiana's got to bring it and be ready to go. Their team's got to be ready. So I think watch for that one.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, the clock is showing quadruple zeros, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast. See you next week. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.